Hello everyone, Smith here. Today I've got a bit of a fun one I hope. I'm going to show you how to make some cheap, fast, emergency lockpicks. They're not going to be as nice or polished as other picks, but they're going to be cheap and easy, and I've made them using just that cheap multi-tool, the cheap rotary tool with the cheap discs, and a black thin wiper insert. I also use some sandpaper and a round file later in the video just to get some details right. So first I start off by trying to cut this, then I realise how bad these cheap multi-tools are. But I persevere and get it cut anyway. Then I cut another length of similar length using the cut-off disc with the cordless Dremel. When I use the Dremel, I always wear a full face mask with a filter in the bottom. I don't want to be breathing any of this in, and the amount of times I've had metal shards go into my eyes, I just don't do it anymore. As you can see, the ends that I have cut are very messy and we'll have to deal with those later. So the plan for this emergency pick set is I want versatility and I want rapid entry. Here I mentioned that I am going to cheat because instead of using those cheap pliers to hold it, I'm going to use my mole grips. Like I said, the plan is versatility and rapid entry. So the two profiles I'm going to go for, I'm going to make a mini triple peak Bogota style. It's going to be a much shorter frequency and much smaller. And I'm going to make a half diamond because the half diamond is the most versatile and I'll be able to use it in the widest range of locks. So I'm going to lock the first piece in here and I'm going to use the cut-off disc to carve out a half diamond. Eventually I realise that I haven't prepped a glass of water, which I always use to keep the metal cool. So I start by shaping the front of the pick, the shape I want that to be. Then I work inwards and start shaping the inside and thinning out the shank. Always be careful when you're using these tools. When I make my custom picks, I only use hand files. For 90-something% of them I use hand files because that's what I enjoy. But like I said, this is a video for making quick, cheap, easy emergency picks. I've just gone to get the glass of water to keep the steel cool, to not lose the little bit of temper that it has. Back to shaping here, I'm using a mixture of using the grinding disc as a grinder and moving the steel against that, and also using the cordless Dremel to move the disc itself. I'm going, as you can see, I'm just touching little bit by little bit, making sure I can see how much I'm taking off because you don't want to go too far. Now I have the basic shape of what I like. I'm going to work on thinning out the shank so it fits in the lock. Using cutting discs like this to make picks is not ideal, but again, this is just fast, cheap and easy. And in the end, I do end up with some decent picks that would be very easy to carry around, very easy to conceal, and work an absolute treat. I'm now moving on to my triple peak, so I'm going to shape the front like I did last time. Then I'm going to cut straight into the steel where I want the gaps in the peaks to be. So I shape that like a half diamond there, and that's my first gap, and then you'll see me cutting where I want the next peak to, gap in the peaks to be. So I'll shape that one out there. And then I'll go for my third one, which will be the transition to the shank of the pick. I'm wiping off the water there because sometimes it obscures your vision and makes it difficult to see where your cuts are. And there's the basic shape of what the rake is going to be. Now I'll work on removing the rest of the material and cutting the waves into the back. Here I'm showing you a closer view of me lining up and cutting straight into in line with the peaks. Smoothing over as I go. Here you can see the basic shape of how it's going to turn out. And here I'm pointing out that I haven't removed enough material yet, but I'll come back to that later. I've now attached a cheap sanding barrel, one of the thinner ones that comes with the Dremel set. And I'm going to use this just to smooth around. I'm going to use it to remove some of the paint and smooth all of the edges around. You don't want it to be rough inside the lock. If you want to, you can use sandpaper and take your time and do it right, but if you want to do it quickly, then just get the Dremel on it. Just make sure you're wearing your mask and you're being careful not to remove too much material. I've now removed what I would like to remove with the sanding, and I've gone back to the small cutting disc to remove more material so it fits in the lock better. And I'll get my small, again, very cheap, round needle file, and I use that just to correct the shape of the profiles, make them smoother, make them rounder, make them nicer in the lock. So on the rake, on the side that affects the pins, I want sharp peaks, and on the other side, I would like it to be smooth. Now that I've shaped those, I've grabbed the closest piece of sandpaper to me, which happens to be 1000 grit. I should probably go for 800, but 1000 works fine. I'm just smoothing around all the edges and the profiles to make them work in a lock nicely. Here I'm finishing them off with an abrasive wheel. They're not going to have the shiniest or best finishes, but they're going to be smooth enough to work inside of a lock. Here's how they're looking so far. Next, for an emergency pick set, we're going to need tensioners. Here I'm just smoothing off the rough edges that we left earlier to make a nice tensioner. On the half diamond, which I'll mainly use for single pin picking, I'm going to add a long tensioner. And this is because that's the tensioner I'll be using with the rake, so I'm aiming for a bottom of the keyway tensioner. On the rake, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to have a shorter tensioner, so I'm going to leave it long enough that I can use it bottom of the keyway, but I'm going to make sure that it's effective top of the keyway as well. Like I said, I'm aiming for versatility. And here is how they're looking so far. Like I said, they're not going to be the neatest of tools, but we're aiming for functionality and versatility. You can see there's a long tensioner and a short tensioner, and we've got a half diamond and a rake. Now it's time to test them. I've got a very cheap, very easy rim cylinder set up, so it will be a fairly easy test for them, but let's see how they feel inside of a lock. I'm going to start off using the long tensioner for bottom of the keyway, and I'm just going to try a scrubbing action. And like that, we have an open. Looks like it works. Let's see if we can rock with it. Again, another very easy open. Now, I want to test the top of the keyway tensioner, but I'm also going to pick off of the warding anyway. So, let's see how it SPPs. Just adjusted it there to give you a better view. And we have an open. So here is your very easy, minimal effort emergency pick set. You can adjust the lengths, you can add whatever you like to them. I'm going to spend some time off camera polishing them and making them look much nicer, and I'll get back to you in a future video. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Please leave a comment, please subscribe.